Sasha.
Hi, Sasha. Okay. Welcome everybody to the July meeting of the San Mateo County Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Commission. I'm the chair of the commission, Monroe Buis, and I will call the meeting to order. Commissioner Huber-Levy, do you want to do the honors and lead us in a roll call?
Sure. So we'll start out with Chair LaBuis.
I'm present.
I am also present. Commissioner Bocanegra.
Present.
Commissioner Liu.
That's me, present.
Commissioner Newton.
Present.
Commissioner Rasmussen.
Here.
Commissioner Swope.
Present.
And I'll backtrack now. Commissioner Enriquez, I don't think has joined us yet. Commissioner Flores.
Nope.
Commissioner Nori. Commissioner
Which
Nori in
one?
Turkey. Yeah, Commissioner Nori dialing in remotely from Turkey.
I don't
Not
think that's
here.
happening. Yeah.
And Commissioner Wilson, I don't think is here yet. But we do have quorum.
Okay, great. Then let us proceed with our meeting. The first thing that we need to do as a commission, as usual, since we're still meeting on Zoom, is to adopt the resolution to continue to meet remotely. Is there a motion to adopt that resolution?
I move that we continue to meet remotely.
I second that motion.
Okay, any further discussion on that? Any interest in meeting in person next month, maybe? We don't have to discuss that now. Just I'm curious if anybody had any opinions. If there's no more discussion, then why don't we do a voice vote? All in favor of meeting remotely this month?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the motion is adopted, and per the resolution, we will continue this meeting remotely. Also, in the agenda packet, we had minutes from our last meeting in June. Is there any discussion of those? Did anyone have any edits or changes? None. So thorough. Thank you, Commissioner Huber-Levy.
My pleasure.
So let's I will make a motion to approve those minutes. Anyone want a second?
I second.
Okay.
Am I allowed to second even though I did the motion? I did the minutes, Susan? I think so, right?
I don't see why not.
Yeah, why not? Okay. Then let's have a voice vote to adopt the minutes from June of 2022. Commissioners, make sure you're off mute. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any objections? Any abstentions? No. Okay, motion passes, and we adopt the minutes from June. Thank you. Moving right along, the agenda for this evening was also part of the packet that was distributed. It's available on the website if any members of the public need to find it. I would just make one comment that that we have a theme in the first hour where we're going to hear a bit more about goings on in Sacramento, both at the legislature and discussions at the BSCC. So I'm looking forward to those updates, and that's part of our agenda for the first hour. Let's adopt the agenda. Anyone have any changes?
I move we adopt the agenda.
Okay,
Second that motion.
great. Any comments or discussion from commissioners, about the agenda? Okay, hearing none. Hearing none, I think I can just go ahead and adopt the agenda, right, Susan?
You have.
Or should we do a voice vote on that? We have a motion, right?
Yes.
Let's do the same as we did. Yep. Commissioners, let's have a voice vote to adopt the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Any objections or abstentions? Okay, great. The agenda is adopted, and we will carry on. The next item up is just an update on membership and meaning membership of the commission, and then we will also get to voting on 2 new candidates for commissioner that the membership committee interviewed in the last month. So the quick update on the membership is that I did receive resignation letters from Commissioner Aurora and Commissioner Willis, both of whom are going off to college in the fall and will be out of San Mateo County. And since they need to be residents of San Mateo County, they can't serve on the commission anymore. And so they have resigned from the commission. You probably noticed, or maybe you noticed on the agenda itself, they're not in the left column anymore. So I think I've commented on this before, that they would be leaving the commission, and we are very appreciative of their service, but it's official now. So they're not here tonight, and they're not commissioners anymore. So we're down 2 commissioners, bringing us to 12, but we have 2 candidates that we want this evening to put up for a vote to join the commission. One is Mama D. Uhila. Does anyone know if I'm pronouncing her last name correctly? Johanna? Anyway, Mama D is a well-known member of the community in East Palo Alto, and she put in an application. I don't see her present yet. Does anyone else? No? Okay, maybe we'll give it a minute to see if she's able to join us before we, vote on her candidacy. So I'll move on to our second candidate, Alan Bustos, who is here. Hey, Alan. And Alan has joined us for at least the last couple of meetings and spoke about an arts program a couple of meetings ago. And Alan has expressed interest in joining the commission, submitted an application, and the committee interviewed him, and is enthusiastic about putting him up for a vote to join the commission. Are there any commissioners, before we get to the vote, who would like to say something about Alan and his candidacy? Any members of the interview committee, aside from me?
I'd like to say something. I didn't have the chance to interview him, but I had an opportunity to meet alongside of him when we were trying to create some ideas and get that grant for the arts program there in Juvenile Hall. And I had an opportunity to listen to him speak his lived experience and use that in a way that it's going to be helpful to the youth that right now are caught in that pipeline. And so I just like to say that it was a pleasure working with him and watching him use his lived experience in the way he did. And I really look forward to seeing him use that more to advocate for more of the systemic change that we need at our YSC and foster system, and just the way we treat our youth. So yeah, congratulations, Alan, and look forward to working with you.
Hey, Commissioner Huberlevi, give me 1 second. I realized that we should have a motion on the floor, and technically in order to get into, discussion. So I would like to make a motion that we that we approve Alan's application and candidacy for joining the commission, and that we then forward that on to the court and the Board of Supervisors for approval. Do we have a second?
Second,
Thank you, Commissioner Swope. All right, Commissioner Huberlevi, sorry, back to you.
Yeah, no problem. And I've appreciated that Alan has been attending our meetings and has shared with us some ideas that he has and his current involvement and his passion for the arts. So that is very exciting. And I just had one little tiny question on your application. You mentioned you were a resident of the Outer Mission, but I thought you had said before that you were a resident of Daly City.
Oh, yeah. So technically Daly City, because I'm at the border of Top of the Hill.
Okay, good. So you're San Mateo County.
Yeah, San Mateo County. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Good. Wonderful. I'm
Great.
glad to hear
All right.
that.
I will just add that, Alan, your experience, your lived experience and your experience now in using the arts towards your education, and towards, supporting others with lived experiences has been inspiring to me. And I'm looking forward to working with you. All right. Any further discussion before we get to a vote? Yes, Susan.
I was just noticing you say you're available for 5 to 10 hours a month. A lot of us are putting in 5 to 10 hours a week. So are you so otherwise occupied that you wouldn't be able to put in more time?
To be honest, I can, right? It's just it's what it, I think I don't know if I misread, didn't interpret it right on the questionnaire. It said, how many would you put a month? There, I don't know if I read it right.
It says, how much time do you have to devote to commission work? And you said 5 to 10 hours a month.
Oh, it didn't state whether on the question it was monthly or weekly.
No,
Oh, I mean, technically on a weekly, I envision my work around commission work, because I think I feel what everything I do now in my lifestyle is synergistic to what the commission stands for, as I'm a social justice and restorative justice advocate. So I'm a full-time student. I intend to, now that you mentioned, I do have that available. I have that capacity to
great.
put that time in. So I sent an application hopefully to be tutoring at San Quentin on the weekends. And so that's where I intended my time to be designated to for the commission, aside from my homework during the weekdays, to put in a lot of hours on the weekends. But yeah, I'm more than willing to put whatever hours are necessary. Yeah.
Thank you for the clarification.
Any further discussion before we get to a vote on the motion?
Yes, Monroe. I just had a quick question, Alan. I think you mentioned restorative justice. What's your experience with that?
Oh, well, I was introduced actually this year to it. And so, well, my experience is limited to training. So I've put a certain amount, I went through a certain amount of hours in training, but also in text. And it's through a re-entry scholar network that I'm connected to that provides the outsourced training through the International Institution of Restorative Practices. I think they're based out of Pennsylvania, Philadelphia. And undergoing that was transformative or restorative in itself, right? Though it was like mock sessions, it was.
Yeah, that's great. We're actually trying to start a youth restorative justice program here in our county, along with FLY and some of our other JJDPC and youth commissioners. So I look forward to working with you if you get confirmed.
Likewise, I do as well.
Okay, let's keep moving forward and bring this to a vote. So Commissioner Huber Levy, I think maybe we'll want to just do a roll call vote here instead of a voice vote.
Sure,
So can you take that away?
I certainly can. So Chair LaBouisse,
In favor, yes.
and I vote in favor as well. I think Roxana has not joined. Commissioner Bocanegra,
That's a yes for me.
Commissioner Flores,
Yes, for me.
Commissioner Liu,
Yes.
Commissioner Newton,
Yes.
Commissioner Satvik Nori,
Yes.
Commissioner Rasmussen,
Yes.
Commissioner Swope,
Yes.
and I think that's all the commissioners present. So that is
Unanimously
unanimous.
adopted. Terrific, Alan. The next step is for us to forward your candidacy to the Board of Supervisors, who need to approve, and to the court. So we will keep you posted on that. Sometimes it happens in a month, sometimes takes 2 months, but we'll stay in touch with you on that.
Thank
Great,
you.
congratulations. Yay. All right, on our way to having one more commissioner. I don't see Mama D present, but I don't think she has to be in order for us to move forward with the vote. The interview committee also met with Mama D Uhila from East Palo Alto, and she has extensive experience working in the community and working with youth that have been involved in the system, as well as just working as a public servant in the county of San Mateo. She's just come off of 3 terms on the Commission for Aging, and prior to that, she did serve on the Juvenile Justice Commission, and she served for 12 years. So I just wanted to note that when we forward, assuming that our vote moves forward, that when we forward her application to the Board of Supervisors, we have to ask for an explicit exception to the county rule that there's a limit of 12 years that someone can serve on a commission. I'm confident that we'll get that exception, but it is something that we have to ask for, and I just wanted everyone to be aware of that. Hang on, sorry, Susan. Just one more comment on that is that I've sort of sought a clarification of that rule, and I did hear back from the county that it isn't that if you serve 12 years, then you do need to get that exception. There isn't, for example, if you wait 10 years before you serve again, then you're allowed to serve again. Nor is the rule that the terms have to be consecutive. There is no clarification. It just states simply, once you serve 12 years, then you're no longer eligible.
Yeah, that was my question. Because I
Yeah.
was thinking there was she hadn't served when I've been on the commission, so it seemed to me it was a long time ago, and maybe the limitation would no longer apply.
Yeah,
But it does.
I thought there might be some kind of caveat or exception. Apparently there isn't just in the way that it's written. But like I said, it has been a long time, and she is a very valuable public servant, and we would love to have her on the commission, or at least I should say I would love to have her on the commission. So I will make the motion while I'm talking, I guess, that we vote to approve Mama D Uhila's application to be a commissioner again on the Juvenile Justice Commission, and that we ask for that exception from the Board of Supervisors.
Second,
Great. And would anyone else like to say anything about her and her application?
I would like to speak on Mama D. She's a very dear friend of mine, someone that has embraced me since day one. Like like really embraced me and has provided a foundation and a platform for me to be able to do some of the work that I'm doing. I've worked with her in her community, East Palo Alto, as well as in Menlo Park. She has deep, very deep lived experience with assisting our youth. And I think now that we are reimagining what treatment rehabilitation should look like, it would really give us a deeper perspective on how they used to think before and where we're at today, and really pick her brain on the progress that supposedly we've made, right? Like, because when I've sat with her, there hasn't been no progress. Things are still the same, and that was a long time ago, like Susan said. So maybe we can really use her experience to help us nudge this change that we seek here for our juvenile criminal justice system. So yeah, she's definitely someone that I would enjoy to work with.
Could I just add something? Would that be okay, Chair?
Please, yes.
So I'm excited about Mama D joining our commission for several reasons. And two of them are, one, we desperately need someone who represents East Palo Alto. That's a very important part of our county, and very important that we have someone, a long-term resident, who really understands what happens and what's happening on the streets of East Palo Alto. And I also think it's important that we have a member of our commission who is Polynesian. Because many of our families are from Tonga and Samoa. And so having that representation on this commission really matters. And so I'm excited about the opportunity to work with her.
Thank you both. Anyone else? Okay, great. Let's move to a vote on this. And let's do the same with a roll call as we did on the prior vote. Commissioner Huber-Levy, do you want to do the honors?
Yes, I'd be happy to do that. Chair LeBuise.
I'm in favor of Mama D joining the commission.
And I am also in favor. Commissioner Bocanegra.
That's a yes. Thank you.
Commissioner Flores.
That's a yes for me.
Commissioner Liu.
Yes.
Commissioner Newton.
Yes.
Commissioner Satvik Nori.
Yes.
Commissioner Rasmussen.
Yes.
Commissioner Swope.
Yes.
And I think that is all the commissioners. So unanimous.
Great. Excited for that. And we have another application to forward on to the Board of Supervisors and to the court. So that takes care of membership. We had several things to get through there. And that brings us to item 2 on our agenda, when we pause for public comment. If there are members of the public that would like to make public comment on the issues and matters that our commission focuses on, but on items that are not on the agenda, this is the time to be able to do that. If there's anything that people would like to bring our attention to or otherwise comment on. Okay, I'm only hearing my cat in the room. Not sure if anybody else is, but hearing none, then we will have other opportunities for public comment on the items on the agenda when we get to them. So let's keep moving on. The next item on the agenda, which is not slated until another 10 minutes from now, is to get an update from Chief of Probation John Keene on his work in Sacramento this spring and summer. And I think Chief Keen has not joined us yet. So we might hold that one until he's able to join, since we're running a little bit ahead of schedule. But just FYI, I invited Chief Keen to come and give us this update because I've been in other meetings with him when he's updated us on what is going on in Sacramento. And he has been, for this calendar year, the president of the State Association of Chiefs of Probation. And so in that role, he's been active in Sacramento, talking about the governor's budget and upcoming potential changes to regulations. So when he joins us, that'll be the topic that he's covering, and we will get to that when he's able to join us. Why don't we then move on to item 4 on the agenda, which is just to get updates from our partners at the court and in the county. So I see Judge Cadet present, and Judge Cadet, we would love to hear from you, just an update on
Oh Lord,
what's been going on at the court.
I tried to unmute and I turned off my my video. So
No, we can see you. We can see you.
Well, I don't have any, updates. We're continuing to chug along. I do notice that there are some JJDPC members who have been attending court, and thank you all for attending. I think that it's helpful for our youth to see that there's support in the community, and I appreciate that. So I see Johanna a lot, and I believe I might have seen Paul and one other person back there. I think I may have, but I was so busy I wasn't able to come over and say hi or whatever. So please charge that to my head and not my heart. There's a lot going on that day, but I do remember seeing you. So I just want to thank the commissioners for all that you guys are doing for the community. It's really important work, and it's just it's really encouraging to hear folks talk about their lived experiences and how they're bringing that to bear with respect to community service, because things really do start from the grassroots, and they do really start with well-meaning folks. So that's all I have. Just kudos to you all.
Thank you, Judge Cadet. And given the sort of surge in COVID that's been in the county recently, nothing's changed as far as the operation of the court. The same as before, Zoom optional for some and so on.
Yeah, nothing's changed. And then, well, I guess one thing that had changed at some point, maybe a couple weeks ago, they reinstituted the mask requirement for the courthouses, for all 3 courthouses.
Right.
Apparently there was a real outbreak in the Redwood City courthouse in particular. So it hasn't hit the juvenile facility as it did the Redwood City facility, but we just court-wide started requiring that folks wear masks. So on the one hand, it's kind of disappointing because I feel like everybody in society, we're kind of, I don't know, just tired. It's been a couple years and we thought this was over, and it's not. Then on the other hand, it's better to be safe. So, we're balancing that. So, yep.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. If there aren't any questions for Judge Cadet, then we can move on to an update on legislation from Commissioner Huber Levy. I know that
I have
Ron,
a question for Judge Cadet.
Go ahead, Commissioner
Yes.
Bocanegra.
It's a pleasure to see you, and you did see me in your courtroom. Great work, and thank you for the service to our community as well. very compassionate with our youth, and it was just a pleasure to see that that perception in that courtroom when these kids are at their most vulnerable state. But I had a question. When another county puts a warrant out for a youth, for instance, hypothetically San Francisco, and they arrest one of our youth, for instance, San Mateo County, hypothetically, and they place them in our custody, does a judge ever review that arrest for this kid that has a warrant in another county? And what is that process like for his parents to learn that information as to like what the charges are, why this warrant was issued out? Like, do you have any?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
So if a youth ends up in the YSC for a warrant that San Francisco puts out from the arrest him in San Mateo, and he ends up in the YSC, does a judge ever review that arrest there, that even though he's not going to court there, he'll be going to court in another county?
Yeah, I'm just not clear about the type of circumstance that you're raising. And in terms of reviewing arrests, I mean, we don't, I'm just not really understanding what you're asking. I mean, maybe Jehan understands the situations that you're bringing in.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, if someone's arrested on a warrant, they're generally brought to the court that issued the warrant.
Right.
So I guess I just don't understand what you mean, that someone would be at YSC from a warrant from another city. If they were at YSC, and again, this would be speculation on my part, but if they're at the YSC for a warrant out of a different county, I would imagine they would just be held there perhaps temporarily until they're brought to the judge that issued the warrant. So basically, when a court issues a warrant, it's to bring you before that court.
Right.
So we don't, the judges are, we have, people are brought to us on our warrants, not on other people's warrants. Now, there may be cases where someone is in court for a San Mateo County case and they've got warrants in other counties. That may happen, but we're generally not acting on those warrants or those cases. We're just handling what's before us. That makes sense?
Yeah, no, it makes absolute sense. And so, yeah, I'd look forward to maybe having a conversation with you at some point to discuss that further. But thank you so much. You did add clarity for that for me, and I would probably have like some follow-up questions for you later on. But thank you.
No problem. My door is always open, Paul.
Thank you, Judge Cadet. You're awesome.
Okay, moving on to the legislative update. Commissioner Huber Levy, I put your name down here since Ron Reyes is, well, you are our legislative coordinator, but also Ron Reyes sometimes gives us updates. I think he's on vacation this month.
Right. So Commissioner Liu had approached me and asked to get involved in working on the legislative updates that we prepare. And I was very happy to have his support and his new ideas and his thoughtful research and finding more information. So I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Liu to provide you with an update. And prior to this meeting for the commissioners, we did circulate the written form of update, and we will append that to the minutes. So it'll form a part of a record of this meeting. But I will turn it over to Commissioner Liu.
Thank you, Commissioner Huber Levy. So there are many bills before us today to go over. And the first is AB 2321, which is confining youth to locked rooms. So this one basically says that a youth cannot be in a locked room for more than 1 hour, and it clarifies that from the current law. So that one passed the Assembly and was ordered to the Senate. It passed the Senate Committee on Public Safety and was referred to the Committee on Appropriations in the Senate, due to be heard in August 1 after the summer recess. The next bill is AB 2361, which is transfers to adult court. So under existing law, which is SB 1391, juvenile court is required to receive and consider reports from the probation officer and any other relevant evidence before deciding whether a minor should be transferred. And as such, courts must consider certain criteria, including whether minor can be rehabilitated prior to the expiry of the juvenile court's jurisdiction. So what this bill changes is it requires that judges have a, so currently there's a set of 5 factors to consider with no guidance on which factor should take precedence. However, this law would require that courts find that minor is not amenable to rehabilitation in order to transfer. So it just adds an extra step to an extra burden of rehabilitation. And so it increases by increasing number of minors retained under the juvenile court. We also increase the number of minors entitled to county funded rehabilitation services. So this bill really just imposes a state mandated local program. And this is a very important bill. And it also passed the assembly, was passed the Senate Committee on Public Safety, and was referred to the Committee on Appropriations. And once again, because of the summer recess, will be heard on August 1st. Now, the next bill is AB 2417, which is a Bill of Rights for Youth. So under the existing Bill of Rights law, it only applies to youth in DJJ. However, this bill would extend it to apply to youth confined in any juvenile justice facility. And in addition to that, it would require that youth have access to post-secondary academic and career technical education and programs, and access to information about parental rights and other things like that. So the OYCR, Office of Youth and Community Restoration, in consultation with other parties, is set to develop a standardized informational packet explaining these rights by July 1st, 2023. So I imagine we'll be looking over that next year. And much like the other bills, it passed the Assembly unanimously and had its first reading in the Senate. In June, it passed the Committee on Public Safety, was re-referred to the Committee on Appropriations. And once again, the next hearing date will be August 1st. And the next one is really an update that Ron wanted to emphasize, and that's AB 2629, which is Juvenile Petition Dismissal, or otherwise known as the Youth Justice Act. And this bill seeks to make record dismissal more readily available to youth after they are off juvenile probation, allowing a wider range of employment opportunities, especially for jobs that have federal background checks and things like E-Verify. So under existing law, a juvenile court judge is allowed to dismiss a petition if it's in the interest of justice and the welfare of the person. This bill creates a presumption that a juvenile petition, a juvenile record, should be dismissed when juvenile court terminates jurisdiction, unless there's a public safety concern. So this bill also provides guidance to juvenile courts in applying discretion to dismiss juvenile petitions in the interest of justice, and should lead to more uniformity in terms of their decisions. This also creates a standard in favor of dismissal, which allows justice impacted youth to fully access future opportunities, and it sort of empowers them for more successful lives and steers them in the right direction. So much like the other ones, again, this passed the Assembly in around the end of May 25th, and was ordered to the Senate on a 51-20 vote. And it had its first reading in the Senate again in the end of May, passed Committee on Public Safety in the Senate unanimously, second reading and then third reading. So this bill, according to Ron, has really strong support, and he's confident that it will be signed by the governor. So we're really looking forward to this bill changing the direction of how employment and background checks and what life looks like after juvenile hall for our youth. And the next bill, yeah, there's quite a lot, so stick with me here. The next bill is AB 2658, which is Juvenile Electronic Monitoring. So this bill would entitle a minor to have 1 day credited against the minor's maximum term of confinement for each day or fraction that the minor serves on electronic monitoring. Also, if electronic monitoring is imposed for more than 30 days, it requires that the court holds a hearing every 30 days to ensure that the minor does not remain on electrical monitoring for an unreasonable length of time. It prohibits electrical monitoring devices from being used to converse with a minor or to eavesdrop or record any conversation. And it requires the Department of Justice, DOJ, in complying with other reporting requirements, including data regarding the use of electronic monitoring in the juvenile court. So this one passed the House, the Assembly. It had its first reading in the Senate at the end of May and passed the Committee on Public Safety, was re-referred to the Committee on Appropriations in the Senate on June 21st. And once again, the next hearing date will be August 1st. The final Assembly.
Hey, Commissioner Liu, sorry to interrupt. Can I just ask maybe that we pause the legislative update because Chief Keen has been able to join us, and I know that he needs to leave at a certain time. So I want to make sure to give him enough time. And we can come back to the other bills that we've been monitoring. In fact, Chief Keen's update is, it's titled An Update from Sacramento. So, there's a lot going on in Sacramento this summer as regards juvenile justice. And Chief, thank you very much for joining us. Before you got here, I let everyone know that I've enjoyed your updates in other meetings I've been in with you, and I know you've been active in Sacramento this spring and summer. So we'd love to hear what has been going on and what you have to update us on.
Thank you very much. And first of all, let me say thank you to the group for giving me a few minutes to speak with you here today. And then also too, thank you, Commissioner Liu, for allowing me to cut into your flow. I know when you're kind of get into the flow of doing bills, they kind of just run off your tongue and kind of keep going. So I just actually returning back from Sacramento today, where I've kind of had to participate in a few committees to talk a little bit about some of the things that you guys are going over today. I've been very fortunate in my role here in San Mateo County to be able to work very closely with what's happening in Sacramento, frankly, actually over the last 8 to 9 years. This year has just been in conjunction more so with my association duties, as well as my role as probation chief here. So really the information I want to share with you here today is a lot of it is not necessarily bill specific, because certainly I can answer questions that you may have in terms of where we stand on particular bills, but really to kind of talk a little bit about what's happening from our legislative conversations with not only the administration, but also with different entities like OICR, obviously the Bscc, which is a group that we work with regularly from probation's perspective, and talk a little about this kind of decentralization of the juvenile justice system from the state to the counties, and ultimately some of the ways in which that has been manifesting itself over the last couple of years. Obviously, everyone is aware of the transition point that A23 has created with regard to where youth will be, what the preferences will be, and some of the challenges that will be in front of the juvenile courts around making some of these very difficult decisions around what's the best particular space or focus for our young people. There's been some interesting developments around supporting that process further. Obviously, many of you were aware of this conversation around money that the governor proposed in his original budget to actually offer opportunities for there to be a degree of support and maybe even kind of maybe developing different programs or maybe developing different approaches to facilities and what facilities look like, how those facilities are put together. It was $100 million that was originally set aside, and then there was a conversation around how that money will then go out to individual counties. The money did make it through the budget process and will be going out to counties. There had been some concern from the county delegations in terms of exactly how that money would actually move. Many of you are aware that typically money like this either comes in the form of allocations that are made to counties based on size. Sometimes that is determined by the number of usage within the DJJ system. Other times that have been where we go through for an entity like, for example, the BSCC, where you would put in applications for grants or to receive certain amounts of money through a kind of grant process, a competitive process. What was determined that this will be a straight allocation to the counties based on certain percentages of population size. We still haven't heard exactly what San Mateo County's amount will be. We do know that that money will come directly to the county and will be deposited with the board having control ultimately over how that gets disseminated into our various budgets. What we don't know to this point is what will be the framework in which the money will be given to each individual county. So for example, what will be the things that it can be spent on and the things that it can't be spent on? So we do know, for example, that the money that a county gets, for example, can't be to really build additional capacity. So you won't be able to build a new building with it exclusively or anything that's going to add additional bed space or bed rated capacity for a space. But as many of you have heard us talk about before and received even conversations with you, inside the facility now, we're looking at how do we increase green space, how do we soften certain aspects of the facility to make it a different environment, to make it more of a home-like environment that is within the regulations of what we're permitted to make changes to. There are a lot of things about the facility that are regulatory in nature in terms of size and scope and what can be places and what can't be places. This money is not going to change that. It's not enough money to, for example, build a whole new wing that is completely home-like in its nature. There will be certain things that the BSCC will be determining in regard to regulatory space about what can be changed and what cannot be changed. That process is ongoing, and I'll talk a little about that next. But there are a lot of things with this money that we're just not sure exactly what we'll be able to do. I would imagine that our amount will not be substantial enough to say, for example, we are going to, as I said, knock a wall down or to dramatically increase size of the rooms or things like that. What I think it'll be is things around the area of, like I said, changing furniture, for example, finding ways to soften the landscape to make it more amenable, whether it's color patterns, things of that nature. Because really, remember, this is facility money. So this is not programming money. It's not things of that nature. So it's really more about spending it on the facility directly itself. We have looked over the years since I've been here. I'm going into my 10th year here in San Mateo, and we've explored a variety of things that we could do to change some of the facilities. And many, many years ago, we started looking at, for example, our girls' camp to see if there's things we could do differently there. And we were stunned, frankly, one, to see how much it actually costs to do construction. And this was obviously before 2022 cost, but it was just the cost of it was staggering. And the loss of rated capacity that you get once you make these changes. And so one of the things that I think is really important to note about this money is that initially the $100 million was supposed to be kind of the first step in this multi-year process of providing opportunities for new construction, reimagined construction, significant changes within facilities. There does not appear to seem to be much talk now about adding additional money down the road for facilities. There was a lot of conversation around the hesitancy to even really to put this money out to kind of, to try to do more and make changes inside of the space. And so I don't think that multi-year plan is something that my crystal ball says is really on the horizon right away. I think there's a lot of concern about where we will be in the next couple of years around the solvency of our state budget. So there was not much willingness to want to say, yes, we'll give this money today, and then we'll make a verbal commitment to provide so many millions of dollars down the road to change facilities in a physically meaningful way. So as we get more information about what exactly the framework will be, obviously we'll share that through our various communications in terms of what we can do with it, what our goals will be with it, and certainly to hear what suggestions could come from folks like yourselves. We do know, for example, the mural project, some of the things we're doing inside around a sensory deprivation space, to change kind of some of the feel of some of our spaces is very consistent with our broader plan to make changes within the facility where we really can. So we're certainly working on that. We certainly will have more information as it comes available, but I can't tell you today exactly how much San Mateo County's allocation will be. But as soon as we are aware, certainly we'll have that information disseminated. The regulation process, that's probably the next, I would say, big thing that's kind of on the horizon. As you all know, as people who come in and participate in the inspection process inside of our facilities, so much of what we do is really driven and controlled by the regulatory process that exists at the state. The BSCC has been kind of our oversight board for many, many years and in this space. And every probably couple of years or so, there is this process of regulation revisions where folks come together, look at what's happening inside juvenile halls, look at updated laws that have occurred since the last time the regs were reviewed, to see, are there gaps and are there things that should be done to become more in line with current thinking, current models, and current law. That process is happening right now. We have had, when I say we, the chief probation officers in the state have had listening sessions with BSCC directly ourselves. They also have had various public listening sessions where people are participated in that. And then they'll have several work groups that they'll be reaching out to individual groups to be a part of. In the past, we used to do all of this stuff together in one room where you would have community folks, you would have system partners, you would have other people really debating these kind of concerns around each regulation one by one, all in a group space. This year, the BSCC decided to do something very different in which they're doing these individual separate listening sessions. What they will do is still bring everyone together. They're going to have a what I would call a kind of review process that's going to be held in November, where they'll take all the information that they have received from the various listening groups, and then they will take that information into consideration to take it to their executive board to actually review what revisions make sense, what changes they would make, and then that will all be done in a very open and transparent manner. The revision process is one that is not very efficient in the sense that it doesn't happen immediately. Typically, from the time revisions are suggested, discussed, voted upon, approved, and pushed forward, it typically takes sometimes over a year and a half before revisions actually make it into changing actual processes and things in that nature within the facility. So we know that while the process will, and I'm sorry, I think the dates, and please don't quote me on this, but I think the dates are in the first week of November when they plan to do the public meetings. While they may that day come to some consensus around things that they want to approve and changes they want to see made, oftentimes it takes 6 months or a year before that actually rolls out and actually is then applied to Superintendent Clark and her staff in terms of what the expectations are moving forward. So we don't know, once again, what that looks like in terms of an exact time model, but in the past, for example, whether it's increases in communication, increases in opportunities for education, educational involvements, time in the room, time in private time, which obviously is a really big thing now with this transition to DJJ and this conversation around having older young people in the space who may want to just have more private time to themselves. We had a really intriguing conversation around, does the time that a young person says they want to spend by themselves in their room, does that count towards the hour of confinement time or, separate time? How is that set aside from that? And is it documentation? Will that be enough to show that this is by a young person's choice versus the belief potentially that maybe they're being placed in their room in some type of negative fashion? So things like that will be discussed and will be determined in terms of what will be changes that will overall be made to the actual process of the regulations that I know you guys are very much aware of. BSCC and OICR have been doing a joint kind of roadshow conversation in which OICR has been very clear about what their goals are with probation departments across the state. They have been having individual meetings with each probation department. They've certainly spoken with me and spoken with some of my management team about what their expectations are in terms of what we do. We had a day set up for them to come out, but it was the same day we had the fire here in San Mateo. And so Director Lucero and her team decided to come another day. We have not been informed as to when that new day will be. Once we know that, obviously, we will have them on board and have them come out and have the walkthrough through the facility so they can see firsthand. What I take away from that conversation has been OICR's focus around being a technical assistance arm to us. They were very clear that it's not their goal to be regulatory, and that actually the way the law is written, they're not a regulatory body. They are really focused around system improvements. And so that is around ideas like programming, facility supports and maintenance, training, community engagement around reentry, things of that nature is really going to be where their focus will be. Each individual county will have a liaison. So San Mateo County will have an OICR liaison who folks will be able to communicate with and then be able to kind of discuss what's happening. My job in terms of my relationship with them will be really one where I hope to get a lot of really positive suggestions around, what are good practices, what are best practices around the state in terms of certain programming. So, we are not reinventing the wheel and we're not creating good programming by geography. So it depends on what county you happen to be in, depending upon the quality of the programming you get. My hope is that as OICR collects a lot of this really good information, they'll be able to provide data to us and say, well, we've determined that for young people with significant mental health issues, for example, this is the ideal gumbo of services to programming to supports that are going to get them ready for reentry so they can be successful transitioning out of the facility. And so that's kind of really how we hope that relationship will go. And nothing that Judge Lucero has said in any of her public and private communications with me leads me to believe that it'll be anything other than that. I think this is a really great opportunity for us to gain some really good, valuable support from them, because in a lot of ways, since this kind of decentralizing process has taken place, the state really is kind of jettisoning their responsibilities around supports to this juvenile justice system. So now we have to really figure out internally in each individual county, what's the best way to support our individual folks. And so we know at this point where the kids are going. We know how much money is coming to each individual county, although there is some tweaking of those numbers happening now. And so really it's about how do we make sure that young people don't go further into the system than they need to? And then how do we make sure that once we do have them and they go through the process, we can get them out in a timely manner. And then the last thing I'll say before I take questions is that I think, while there's certainly always going to be a plethora of bills that will come down that'll tweak different things. And, Commissioner Liu talked a lot about, the things around electronic monitoring or things around kind of further clarifying intent. I think that's what in terms of what we see in Sacramento right now, from my perspective, that's what I see coming. Is just more clarification around intent, more trailer bill language, things of that nature. But I think that there is a growing sense of fatigue around major changes in the juvenile justice system. And what we've seen on the adult side, for example, is that at some point you have to kind of pause and let your changes take hold before you keep adding more and more changes on top of it. And so I think what we'll see coming over the next cycle, particularly this year, because most of the bills that Commissioner Liu spoke of are all 2-year bills, which means this is the last go round for them in terms of how they make it through the process. I think we'll see a pause after this year to really take a chance to see what data needs to be collected. And I know OICR is very big on that right now. And then what will be the evaluative processes that are being in place to see if what has been proposed is actually working or not working. And so I see more of an emphasis around this cleanup and this idea of kind of process. I know that Judge Cadet knows what's happening in the Judicial Council and kind of some of their focus around process and getting documents together to ensure that every judge is on the same page around what should be happening in court around this, and then still trying to do more cleanup in the WIC, where a lot of this stuff still is in conflict. There's a lot of things that 823, for example, has done that still hasn't been officially cleaned up in the code to make it where there's not conflictory things happening in the court process. And as you know, that unfortunately then creates justice by geography. One judge, one jurisdiction interprets it one way, another judge, another jurisdiction interprets it another. And we even see a lot of that here in our own kind of Bay Region spaces. And so that's really where I think it's coming. I think there is there's going to probably not be, unfortunately, any real desire to do any major facility supports moving forward. So I think counties are going to have to do their best to account for what they have in place. We've talked a lot in our county here about our goals of, bringing more vocational opportunities into the space, taking a lot of the things that we've done at Glenwood and bringing that into the space, providing more open space, providing more opportunity for young people to be out of their room in spaces where it makes sense, having more green space that makes sense where we can do that. And then on the upper side of that, obviously having more space where we can have more community public partnerships in preparing for reentry. Because that has been something we recognize. Ultimately, it is not my space or not my feeling as the probation department that we want to 100% handle reentry. I want to do that in a supportive method to ensure that young people who have built relationships with programs and providers will continue to do that moving out into the community, as I know we've been working with Fly to do in some of our reentry model stuff. So I think those are the big things that are happening at this point, at least from the probation lens, what we see, and from my opportunity in terms of speaking with people directly in terms of understanding what their intent was. So Monroe, I'll pause here and see if there are any specific questions for me and kind of see what happens next at that point.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you very much, Chief, for that update. There's a lot going on and a lot to squeeze into 15 minutes. I know you have some family obligations you need to get to, so maybe we'll take a few minutes. Let us know when you need to take off.
I'll certainly answer some questions though.
Sure. Let's get questions from commissioners, and Commissioner Rasmussen was first to get her digital hand up. So go ahead, Commissioner Rasmussen.
Thank you so much. It's so nice to see you here, Chief King. This is the first time I've seen you at a meeting since I've been a commissioner, so I really appreciate your presence and for giving us that update. I just, I have to leave the meeting early, but I had one thing came to mind as you were speaking is in last year's inspection report, we recommended highly that there be a dedicated therapy mental health space, a therapeutic space for our children. And I've met with Supervisor Canepa, and he's looking to see if we can find funds to help to get that room space. But I would really like to advocate if we could put that on the top of the list of needs for our children inside of the juvenile hall, is that dedicated therapy space where they can have their, take their mental health therapy, in an environment that's more conducive to that work. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm really happy to hear you talk about that, because that's something certainly that we support as well. I think it's evidenced by our focus around the sensory deprivation room that we've done in terms of, the under the sea theme that we're doing. The whole goal of that space is to create an environment where young people will be able to go and have that time out to be able to engage with their therapist in an environment that is quieter, that is separate from everything that's happening, and frankly will give that opportunity for decompressing and downtime that is supportive. And so we certainly share that with you, and really will work closely with our mental health professionals in that space. As you know, we are a system focused group where we work closely with our partners in that space. And so certainly, I'm sure your advocacy and the things that you speak of are things that I know is high on their priority list as well. So I don't see why those things won't be able to be married together.
Commissioner Bocanegra, go ahead.
Good evening, Chief Keenan. Thank you for that presentation. And it was just, I've been working with you on the Reimagined Juvenile Hall, and it was just heartbreaking to hear this this report that you were just very descriptive in giving. It's just unfortunate that many kids, as you know, my lived experience, I saw the entire school to prison pipeline, and community policies sometimes still make me feel like I'm in the pipeline. But just the fact that even adult prisons, people who commit murder, attempted murder, manslaughter, eventually leave the box and go down to a ranch and become even firemen now. That these kids where I spent time in CYA, DeWitt Nelson, looks exactly like Camp, and they're gonna come from that. And I know you want to soften this, and we've been working very hard on softening these boxes because they're cages like cement boxes. And that open space to a box, I can tell you, I was in that open space. That was where I grew the most in my entire 25 and a half years in the school to prison pipeline. And just the fact that, I'm here in Sacramento make this decision in regards to infrastructure is just extremely depressing to hear that, they're still disconnected. And so we definitely have to speak to our senators and find out exactly why we're just going to receive some, maybe some program money. But the question that I had is there any way, like, has there been a discussion, maybe a step down program from this locked in facility to maybe use Camp for DJJ and other youth that are becoming young men and maturing in these boxes?
Well, I mean, I think from my perspective, I think that a step down program is one of those parts of this legislation that frankly just wasn't very clearly processed out. We don't know exactly what that means. It means a different thing to each individual county. And so we don't have a consistent messaging around that. And there really is no money dedicated specifically to that. What I will say though, is that I know, and certainly, I know the judges are very cautious about how they weigh in on these types of areas. And so I don't want to say anything here that's going to make their job more difficult, other than to say that I think step down is important. I think that if the community that a young person is coming back to is supportive of step down programs within that community, then I would say, yes, that is a really, really great opportunity for young people to transition from a juvenile hall space, which no matter how soft we make it, it's still a juvenile hall. And we recognize that and we understand that. So I do support the idea and the concept of step down. It's challenging to see how a true step down facility can be commissioned in an environment such as ours. I would hate to have to lose the program that Kemp is to transition it to this. There are certain regulatory things that come with that program in terms of how it's built, the program and the population it was designed to serve. And when you go to make changes in this, and this is something that probably about 6 years ago, we really took a deep dive in, it changes the facility and changes how it's rated and changes how the state sees it. So the 30-bed capacity that we have today, if we start to make too many changes to the model itself, where we'll reduce that down to probably 4 to 6 tops in terms of what the state will commission it to hold. So I think step down is certainly needed, and it's certainly an important part of reentry. I'm just not sure that Kemp is the model to try to utilize to make it happen. But certainly, if there are opportunities in the community for a step down program, and it is conducive to what I think any judge would want in a step down space to feel secure and comfortable that this also helps the young person achieve their rehabilitative goals, I would support something like that.
Thank you so much, Chief.
Chief, I know it's 6:25 and you may need to get moving, but you just let us know. I see 1 or 2 more hands raised. How are you doing for time?
Yeah, I mean, 10 more minutes should be fine. 5 or 10 more minutes should be fine. So I can take the last 2 and then I'll get out of here then.
Okay, Commissioner Liu, go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, Chief Keen, thank you for your update. It was really nice hearing from you. I'm going to shift gears from Commissioner Bocanegra and Commissioner Rasmussen's line of questioning. And I'm just going to ask a very pointed question. What do you see our relationship as the general public and OYCR as? Do you see probation being in the middle of that? And do you see, what do you envision the dynamics to be with OYCR? I know you mentioned the liaison and sort of, can you speak more about the timeline and what that looks like?
It's difficult to say about the timeline. I think they are in the process of still trying to hire. If you talk directly to Director LaSalle, she'll tell you they're small but mighty. They're trying to build a brand new entity from the ground up. So I can't tell you what their timeline is for hiring and who will have what. I do know they won't be a very large group, so I could envision a liaison having probably a very large span of control that they're responsible to. And so how that would then translate into responsiveness to the community and to questioning, it's hard for me to say. But in terms of how I recognize or see the relationship is I don't see us in the middle of that. I think that if, for example, this body wanted to talk directly to OICR or the liaison, my understanding is that that is something that they anticipate. I don't necessarily see anyone having to go through probation to speak to OICR. And I think that conversely, my relationship with OICR is separate from yours. So, there'll be things that obviously I'll be responsible for in terms of information sharing and reporting out and things of that nature that will be obligatory for me. But the truth is that doesn't have any impact on you guys. So just the most basic answer I can have is I don't really see us as an in-between at all.
Great, thank you. Chief, we have one more question. I want to introduce you to Alan Bustos, who, before you got here, we voted to add him as a commissioner to the commission. So that hasn't obviously been approved yet by the board and the court, but he is a commissioner-elect, I guess you could say now.
Definitely, understood.
Go ahead,
Thank you,
Alan.
sir.
Hi, Chief King. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
Forgive me, it's going to be kind of chopped up because I kind of didn't know how to form my question, but during as you were talking in the beginning, I recollect that you mentioned the public being involved in like public hearings around the discussions. I was just curious to how inclusive that was, or how comprehensive was the information that they got into what they were participating in.
Let me be clear. I have no control over the way BSCC handles those meetings.
Oh, yes.
That's not my space.
Okay.
So BSCC does public meetings in which they notice and they send out information to let you know when they're going to have those meetings. And much like any other public entity or body where they have public comment and public engagement time, they do that same thing in those spaces. I know they've been trying to do more virtual spaces just to be more inclusive. But the November meetings will be public spaces where people can actually come physically give their communication and things of that nature. So in the past, that was the way we did every meeting. But now, the benefit and difficulty of COVID is that it gave rise to more virtual options. So that's the way the BSCC will handle it. So they really drive that part of the conversation. They are a regulatory body that does not take direction from us because they have oversight over us.
Understood.
All right. Thank you again, Chief Keen. We appreciate it. There's a lot going on with, as you put it, the decentralization of juvenile justice in the state of California, and we appreciate your getting your perspective and information about it.
Thank you. I
thanks for
appreciate it.
coming.
Thanks for your time.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. And you guys have a good rest of your meeting.
Thanks
too.
for coming.
You have a good
Thank
night.
you.
Thank you.
That just question from Alan about public input into the BSCC regulatory process is maybe good transition to our next agenda item. And Commissioner Liu, I know we cut you off in the middle of your legislative update, but if you don't mind, I think in the interest of time, we probably need to keep moving. And I know you have a written update. You and Commissioner Huber-Levy have a written update which we can attach to the minutes. So there were a couple of other bills, but what I'd like to do is just attach those to the minutes for this meeting, if you don't mind. Okay, the next agenda item, we have Colin Ford from Fly joining us today. And the reason why I asked Colin to join us and put him on the agenda, and for those of you who are keeping track, we're on 4C on the agenda, which has to do with BSCC regulations review. And Fly is going to be conducting one of the sessions to collect input for the BSCC. And so I invited Colin here to tell us a little bit about what Fly is doing there.
Awesome. Thank you so
Colin,
much.
go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Colin Ford, Policy Associate with Fresh Lifelines for Youth. Happy to be here with you all this evening. And yeah, what Chief Keen was discussing and Alan's question queued me up perfectly. So thanks for that. I think it might be helpful. I'll try to make this first part of my comments brief, but just especially for the members of the public who may not be super familiar with the BSCC. I'd love to share just a little bit of background on the BSCC and this title regulation revision process that Chief Keen was speaking to a moment ago. So the BSCC, or Board of State of Community Corrections, is a powerful state agency. It has a large staff and, more importantly, a 13-member board that is its decision-making body. And the BSCC, as Chief Keen mentioned, is a regulatory agency that oversees probation departments across the state of California. They're actually responsible for overseeing all the locked facilities in California, adult and juvenile facilities. And as part of that, they have a set of regulations called the Title 15 and 24 regulations, or minimum standards. And these standards basically control every aspect of a young person's life when they are incarcerated. So everything from the quality of the food, how often food is served, youth discipline, use of force, as Chief Keen was mentioning, even things as specific as size of rooms, layout of furniture. So really anything you can imagine, it is included in some way in these minimum standards. So as you can imagine, these minimum standards are very important. And it's important that they're updated regularly so that we can make sure that youth are being protected and youth have access to the best services possible, and youth rights are being protected. And Paul asked, who makes up the BSCC? It is a combination of folks. There are chief probation officers who are members of the board. There are sheriffs. It is quite law enforcement dominant, but there are also community advocates part of it. But, Paul, you really get at a main issue with the BSCC is that this 13-member board that oversees probation also has a very heavy probation presence on that board. So good question. But I'm also here today to share a little bit about Fly's role in all of this, which Alan's question set me up for perfectly. And so the BSCC, as part of this revision of these minimum standards, which they do every couple of years, they held their own public listening sessions on Zoom. And Alan, to answer your question from my point of view, they were not super accessible. They were not a great space to really get very clear input from youth, but the BSCC did do something that I felt was very positive, which was put together some money for community-based organizations to hold their own listening sessions and create their own surveys to get youth input. And so they put together some small grants and awarded those to 3 different CBOs, one in Southern California, one in Central California, and one in Northern California. Fly received the one for Northern California. And so we have conducted in July a series of 4 listening sessions in the counties where Fly is serving youth. And those have been luckily in-person listening sessions where we've now met with about 30 young people in person and have one more this week coming up. We also designed and are sharing a survey that is open. We have 2 surveys, one that is open to those who have spent time in locked juvenile facilities themselves, and then one that is open to the families, to parents and guardians. So those surveys are live. If you're interested in receiving the links to those surveys or finding out more about Fly's work in this space, you can feel free to contact me directly. I will put my email in the chat right now. I am happy to connect. But the last piece of that is our final report and presentation to the BSCC staff is going to be due September 1st. So our final product that we'll be sharing with them, we'll work on over the course of August, is going to include very specific recommendations about what should change about these minimum standards, as well as a final report that shares the comments of the young people we've had the opportunity to speak with. And I will stop there in case folks have any questions for me.
Thanks, Colin. It sounds like maybe we want to have you back in September at our September meeting to hear more about, you know, what you did recommend, like what the report said, or of course we can distribute that in the meantime when it's publicly available. So
Yes,
thanks for
and
that
yes.
update. Yes and yes. Okay, sounds good. And Commissioner Bocanegra, go ahead. Let's get one or two quick questions in for Colin and then keep moving on the agenda.
Yes, yeah, Colin, would you happen to know who funds the BCSS?
So
BSCC.
the BSCC is funded by the state, so it's a state agency. Yeah,
State
so,
legislature.
Yep, this is the state legislature, so it receives its funding, you know, in the California budget each year.
And is there something, the second question, thank you for that. Is there something that you can send me? My email, I'll put my email in the chat room so that I can place this, what is it that you're running? You're going to be asking for input here. And so I'd like to distribute that to the communities that I'm working with, so everyone has an opportunity to bring their voice together and send a message to BSCC.
Yes, fantastic. Kate is helping me out right now and just dropped the links to both surveys, the youth survey and the family survey, in the chat. But if you put your email in the chat, I'll be happy to follow up with you directly.
And do you know by chance whoever appoints this representative from San Mateo County, who makes this appointment?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So as far as I know, you know, because it's a 13-member board, there is not representation from every single county.
Okay.
I know most of the seats, it's like it'll be something like there has to be one chief probation officer from a large county, one from a small county, one sheriff from a large county, one for a small county. But if you go to the BSCC's website, there's actually a helpful page just on their board composition. But yeah, it's a very, very important issue.
Yeah, it sounds like there needs to be some civilian oversight over this this board here. It's especially when it's making decisions for community youth that they've never even met, right? Like they're not even community based, and they're making these decisions and designs of cages where our kids are being placed at, and they're calling it rehabilitation, so and treatment based, right? So yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for that presentation. Good job.
Yeah, my pleasure. And yeah, they are very powerful. I mean, it is the group that is the regulatory agency for probation departments, and they can even shut down a facility if it's not in compliance. So as you mentioned, very important, you know, to have oversight, make sure that there's good representation on that board. Thanks.
One thing I was going to add is I believe I have all the commissioners' emails, so I'd be happy to send the email out so you all can send it to everybody that you all know. So just wanted to say like that was part of the plan. I know. So yeah, I'm happy to share it with everybody and make sure that you all get the links and the connection.
All right, thank you, Kate. I will jump in here to keep us moving on the agenda. Like I said, at the beginning of our meeting, there was a theme tonight. There's a fair amount that we've learned about Sacramento, state regulations, activity going on at the legislature, funding, budget, so on. So thank you to all of our presenters, Colin and Chief Keen included. That's been very informative. Let's bring it back to San Mateo County. maybe that's actually good transition to come back to our own probation department and our regular presenters, Ms. Stoffer and Ms. Clark, who've patiently waited for their updates. So we'd love to hear from you all, just the usual updates about youth in the system at this moment in San Mateo County. Ms. Stoffer, do you want to go first?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. So I will start with the amount. So this is for June. It's been updated a little bit, which I'll give you the most current numbers after I report out on our June numbers. That for the month of June, we had 189 cases in our intake assessment center investigations unit, 122 youth on general and intensive supervision for a total of 311. The number's gone up a little bit since then. We have, and I think this was a data piece that you had asked for, Karen. We have 57 youth, female youth, and 264 male youth for a total of 321 youth that we're serving. So that's our current number. And that's for both assessment center, investigations, youth, and supervision. 5 of our youth are AB 12 kids. They receive the extended foster care services after placement. Thankfully, we still have 0 youth in placement. Only 1 youth left at DJJ. 16 probation officers in the juvenile division. And then going back to our intake unit, we have 2 youth who are on 90-day contracts, diversion contracts, 3 youth who are on 6-month diversion contracts. And for the month of June, we had a total of 29 new cases that were referred to the assessment center investigations unit. 16 of those referrals were mandatory to the DA's office. 6 new assessments, so those kids will likely receive contracts as well. And then 7 cases that were for other diversion referrals, like victim impact awareness, petty theft, mediation. We have finally 10 youth who have gang conditions and 18 youth on EMP. And if there are any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
I have a question, Melanie. Thank you so
Sure.
much for that data. Like, you guys are really working to desegregate it, and it's just a pleasure to hear you bring in these numbers and giving us like a reality check as to what it looks like for kids of color, as well as underserved kids. I had a question. The 6 mandatory DA referrals, do we have a number on how many of those are coming from SROs or schools?
So the 16 that we sent to the DA's office, we don't really have any that I'm aware of, unless it's changed any. Well, no, I take that back. There are SROs in the schools. A lot of these referrals, though, are coming from local police agencies because the kids aren't in school yet. So we may see an increase in referrals once kids go back to school. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Unfortunately, that's sad to hear, but thank you.
Right. And Wesley, you had a question?
Yes, I had a question about the EMPs. Do we track how long each youth is on the electronic monitoring? And yeah.
Yeah, it really differs. It could be that a youth was detained in the juvenile hall and then was released on EMP pending court. So if their court hearing was put out for, 4, 5, 6 weeks, then they're going to be on EMP for that period of time. And then for youth that are on probation, if it was recommended by the probation officer, we tend to recommend 30, 45, 60 days on EMP, and that all depends on the case. I did also forget to mention the youth that we're serving broken down by race. So 60% of the youth that we're serving are Hispanic or Latino, 12% are white, 11% are Black or African American, We have 7% being other race, ethnicity, or origin. 6% are Native Hawaiian or Pacific Islander. 3% are Asian, and then we have 1%, which is unknown.
Commissioner
Karen?
Huber-Levy?
Oh, yeah, we had a question from the minutes last month. So the breakdown by race speaks to the 311 youth that are being served.
Yes.
So that's the denominator. Okay, great, thank you.
Yes.
Great.
And I had one more question. I'm not sure if you were listening or were you part of the meeting when I asked Judge Cadet about youth who, for instance, San Francisco has a warrant out for a youth hypothetically from San Mateo County, and the youth is pulled over maybe, and they run his name, and they see he has a warrant, and they arrest him. Are they on the list as well? And how many do we have that we incarcerate here in our YSC that are just for other counties? Are we keeping track of that information as well? How many come through a month, what their makeup is as well?
Yeah, so our current practice is that for youth, and we just had a few youth come through the Youth Services Center that had a warrant from San Francisco County that were transferred out. They should have gone to San Francisco today to address the warrant, and then they'll come back to our county for disposition because they reside in our county. And so we do tend to get a lot of youth from other counties, but not warrants. It's rare that we'll have a warrant from another county and then the youth is transported to that county. It's usually that the youth commits a crime in San Mateo County, comes into the facility, and then at the detention hearing, if the matter is resolved, we ask that the youth be transferred out back to their county for disposition.
Yes. So one of the mothers sought me out in the community, and the YSC never even called her to let her know what her son was being held there at the YSC for, what the charges were, like absolutely no piece of paper. And I called San Francisco Juvenile Hall and spoke with, I think, Director Palm, and he explained that a YSC should have done that. Like whenever you apprehend a youth and have a youth incarcerated there, that we should make every attempt, especially when the parent is Spanish speaking, doesn't speak English, to keep them informed of why their kid was taken in the middle of the night, for what reason, and just give them an update on how their kid is doing in our facilities here in these cages, because San Francisco said that we should have done that. And this mother just heard from her son, I believe today. I spoke with her maybe about an hour and a half ago, and she was very happy that San Francisco was treating him much differently than he was treated in San Mateo County. So yeah, just hopefully we can do some work around that on just, again, I'm not sure what the policy is, but making sure these parents are aware of why their kid is here and what the charges are.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that 100%. I know that, you know, if that happened, if we didn't do that for a parent, we certainly need to do that because that's important. And we need to try to ease the parents, you know, anxiety or stress to the best, you know, ability that we can, and answer any questions that we can. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Melanie.
All right, maybe that's a good opportunity to ask Ms. Clark for her update from the facility.
I just wanted to quickly thank you, Melanie, for providing the breakdown by gender too. Thank you so much for doing that.
Yeah, you're welcome. No problem.
So for the juvenile hall, we currently have 15 males in custody, no females, and 4 females at our girls camp. And the racial breakdown is 4% white, 11% other, 63% Hispanic Latino, 11% Black, and 11% Native or Hawaiian. And everything seems to be going well. Knock on wood, we haven't had any more COVID scares. And the youth will be on summer break from August 1st to 15th. So we'll be having programming going on. And just kind of to address what Paul said, thank you for letting me know. I'm kind of shocked to hear that, because I know all of our youth, when they get booked in, they do receive a phone call home, even if they refuse, the staff opt to talk to the parents. And we make it a habit. Before it was 15 and younger, but now anyone who comes through, they also speak to the on-call attorney who explains everything going on. Now, as far as specifics, if we do have somebody that's booked in on a warrant, as far as the specifics, because it's not our warrant, it's not our kid, they're not typically not in our system, we're not privy to all the details. So, it could be something like that where, unfortunately, they would have to refer back to, if the youth is already on probation, to the probation officer or to their home county to get what the specifics are. We just know, you're here on a warrant, and typically once it's confirmed on our end, it's really, a more short-term thing. A lot of times, if they have not committed a crime in our county, we're really holding them for a very short period of time as a courtesy.
Yes, thank you so much for that. And absolutely, I agree with you. It was very chilling to listen to this mother talk about how San Mateo Police Department arrested her son in the middle of the night with no information, just took him, and that he was in our boxes right here at the YSC, no information. And I believe she said he had court this afternoon. She never even spoke with this attorney, right? Like, this kid absolutely lacks no agency, and they took agency away from the mother as well. Spanish speaking, scared to make a complaint because she's an immigrant. These are the cases right here that we have to be more aware of, and the harms that our system is really doing to a really frightened community and system impacted community already. So thank you so much, Jahan. And I look forward again, like, to maybe connecting where we can chat about how we can maybe improve that. Because again, they don't belong to San Mateo County, but they do because they're residents. And so we have to really, that has to be heavy on our hearts when a mother loses a child, for whatever reason, that she should be informed. She has every right to be aware of why they took her son and why he's being held in our facilities. And just keep her as informed as possible. That was her baby. That is her baby. So thank you so much, though, for hearing me out, Ms. Clark. You're awesome.
Commissioner Hubert Levy, do you have a question?
Oh, yeah. Did I hear correctly so there's no one at Camp Kemp right now?
No, we have 4 youth.
Oh, so it is the one young woman from Sonoma County, and then 3 in the Girls Empowerment Program still?
No, there's 3 that are at camp that are from our county, and 1 from Sonoma.
Okay,
So
okay.
4.
I see. Okay. And is the Girls Empowerment Program still operating during the summer, or is that
Right now, I believe they have 2 that are there.
Okay.
And then they're going on break. So I'm not sure what it's going to look like for the fall.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you so much, Melanie and Jehan, for those updates. There is an update on the agenda, as we usually hear numbers from Director Fong from Children and Family Services. He is on vacation this month, so I did include in the agenda packet the one-pager that he usually distributes that has numbers for youth in the dependency system. So I'm going to refer everyone to that and keep moving on to our final section of the agenda. We only have 20 minutes left, and we've now gotten to the point of getting some updates from commissioners on their work. Maybe what we could do is a lightning round, as they say, just some quick updates from various commissioners on what's going on with some of the projects that they're working on. in the interest of time. So I don't see Commissioner Wilson with us. I think she's also on vacation. So Commissioners Newton and Huber Levy, do you have maybe a quick update on the latest status with Pierpoint?
Do you want to take that, Sasha?
Yeah, I'm happy to give a lightning round.
Thank you.
So just to recap, last time we left off, we had received a large grant from Gilead Foundation. So our total grant amount for 3 years is, oh gosh, I should know the exact number, but it's in the 700,000 plus range, possibly up to 8. Kate probably knows because we have our budget. So we received that grant. And then the problem we faced was that we have a fiscal sponsor called San Francisco Study Center, who essentially agrees to be the nonprofit holding our funding. And so in order to transfer, and then we wanted to transfer the program to Fly so that they can develop it and house it for organizational purposes and because they were the right fit. And so we needed to be released from SF Study Center. We have received sort of the blessing, the unofficial blessing of the executive director after much work on Melissa's part to sort of navigate that relationship and that separation. But he has informally agreed. And then all our funders, so every grant that we received has also agreed to transfer the money from SF Study Center to Fly. So we are well on our way to this becoming a Fly program, which is very exciting.
I just wanted to add too that
Yes, please.
pursuant to our memorandum of understanding with the San Francisco Study Center, we serve them with official notice of termination. So we have the unofficial blessing, but we also made sure that we dealt with it appropriately under the contract so that as a minimum, they would need to have very good reason to not release us to a new fiduciary relationship with Fly as a very appropriate fiscal sponsor with the appropriate nonprofit status. And that we served on, I think it was June 30th. So as a minimum, within 60 days, they need to do that. But I will say that they're being very careful and take their fiduciary duties in being our original fiscal sponsor very seriously. So, and I also will say that Fly have done an amazing job in preparing the road ahead by having a fabulous budget in place and plan that they deliver to their own board. So there's not going to be any issue. Though there were some ruffled feathers to be smoothed, and Melissa did a fantastic job with that.
Fantastic. So Pierpoint continues to roll along and is on its way to becoming officially a Fly program. That's great to hear. The next update that we had from commissioners was Commissioner Liu attended a conference this past month. And Wesley, I know you probably have a fair amount to let us know about, but again, in the spirit of lightning round, give us a quick update on what went on at the conference.
Yeah, so I attended the FCJ National Council on Juvenile and Family Court Judges Conference. And I'm not sure if Judge Cadet or Judge Edizadi, oh yeah, I see Judge Cadet on here. I think that it's a great conference full of judges, and you learn a lot from judges around the country. I personally attended only 2 sessions because I was an exhibitor there, but I heard from the justice at the Mississippi Supreme Court and also a medical doctor who's doing research, much like Professor Kaufman, on opioids and sort of substance abuse. So I'm just going to share really quickly 3 insights. The first is that substance abuse is a chronic illness, and it's we're trying to shift the way we think about it from sort of a moral and legal perspective to a more medical and clinical perspective. So that's something, one of the highlights of the conference. And secondly, is that there are a diversity of solutions available, particularly in data and AI, for early stage intervention and to sort of work in the ACEs field, adverse childhood experiences, a little better. So those are the things I gleaned from the conference, but it was a great conference full of judges, and I promoted California Association of Youth Courts. I'm hoping to see more Bay Area judges. So Judge Cadet next year in Dallas, same time, July. Yeah, I hope to see you there.
So what is the name of this organization?
The National Council on Juvenile and Family Court Judges, NCJFCJ.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Wesley. And I will note that I put the wrong name for the conference in the agenda. You were there representing the California Association of Youth Courts as an exhibitor, not attending their conference. So thank you for that. The next update comes from Commissioner Swope on the diversion program. So the report was done a couple of months ago, and just want to get a quick update on follow-up to that.
Well, I'll be brief. Because of certain things that have been happening personally, I haven't been able to do everything I would like to be doing. But what my intention is, as working in outreach to elected and appointed officials, to meet with police chiefs and others to make them aware of PeerPoint and the other programs that we're working on, and to make sure that they know how to access the diversion project report so that they can see it for themselves. So I expect to be doing a lot of that in the next week or two.
Terrific. Thank you, Commissioner Swope. The next update I put my name down for because Commissioner Rasmussen had to leave the meeting early. She's leading our project along with and working with me and Commissioner Bocanegra and Flores on trying to gather information to understand ways to intervene and prevent youth from getting involved in organized criminal activity or gangs. So we have been conducting some meetings with community organizations and doing outreach to try to learn more. In brief, we're still kind of gathering information, and we do have a meeting coming up next week with a really interesting organization in East Palo Alto called Live in Peace, which we're looking forward to meeting and looking forward to learning more from. So really still in the kind of information gathering and research phase on that one. I wanted to briefly acknowledge Mama D. Uhila, who's actually been here for a little while. She wasn't able to join us during when we voted to approve her moving her application forward. But since I mentioned East Palo Alto and I saw Mama D here, if she's still there, she might be able to pop on. But anyway, just wanted to acknowledge that she has been able to join us for at least the last hour, I think. Okay, the next update that I see on the agenda, Commissioner Bocanegra, you asked to speak briefly, I think, about the arts grant, Jumpstart grant.
Yes, I was hoping Robin would be here tonight. She didn't follow up, but I did have a meeting with Robin Rodix, the director there for the County San Mateo and art in the art program, and she wants to have a follow-up meeting with all of us to put together that grant to ensure that we make it on time and that we get this program going. It's just one more program that can really provide an outlet for our youth who are right now not receiving much program. So like that's the next step is having another meeting so we could figure out what to put down on this grant to submit it. And she did learn recently because there was a new head appointed by the department to run her sector, and she said that they had already agreed to continue to fund this part of the program. So she was really excited to report that information. But that's what I have for now on that, and I'll keep everyone in the loop.
Okay, we will follow up to make sure we get that grant application going. Thank you, Commissioner Bocanegra. And let's see, the last update that we had from commissioners was about marketing and social media. Again, I'm doing this on behalf of Commissioner Rasmussen, who had to leave early, but again, there is a one-page report in the agenda packet, just updating everyone on our social media analytics. Commissioner Rasmussen continues to post to Twitter and Instagram, as well as posting the recordings of these meetings to YouTube. So we are still accumulating some followers, and she is doing great work. If you're not following us on Instagram or Twitter yet, I'd encourage you to do that. And there's more information in the agenda packet. Okay, so this gets us to the last 5 to 10 minutes here. And so the last announcement comes from me, which is that, and this is a repeat of what we have talked about in previous meetings, but the JJDPC commissioners will be holding an offsite, a whole day offsite. We're planning to gather around 10 in the morning and go until 4 o'clock or so on August 20th. We will be publishing the agenda for that. Part of that meeting will be open to the public, and the location is still TBD. I'm doing some work on finding a community center or a community organization that would be willing to donate some space for us. Have a couple of good leads right now in San Mateo and East Palo Alto and potentially Redwood City. So so I just wanted to make sure that members of the public were aware that we will be having this offsite on Saturday, August 20th. And the county has also provided for us a facilitator, someone who is with us tonight, Debbie Schechter. Debbie, you can wave, hi. And Debbie has experience doing these sorts of team building and offsite retreats for organizations, as well as experience with the Peninsula Conflict Resolution Center. Debbie, do you want to say hi? Do you want to, I don't know, add anything?
Just briefly, hi everyone. I really appreciate being able to sit in on this meeting tonight to learn a little bit more about what the commission does, as well as to see some of the folks that the commission partners with. I'm excited to be able to facilitate your retreat on August 20th, and I look forward to meeting you all.
Great. We talk often, or at least we did in the first half of the year, about how packed our agendas can be at these 2-hour monthly meetings, and how it would be a good opportunity for us to be able to get together in person and spend more time with each other, and spend more time talking about how the commission, gets its work done, and how we can be as effective as possible to see the change that we'd like to see in the county for youth involved in the juvenile justice system. So that's why we're having this this offsite, and that's going to be on August 20th. Did any commissioners have any questions about that, or any comments about the offsite? Okay, I think everyone's ready for dinner. I will be sending more information by email to commissioners about that, and then of course, pursuant to the Brown Act, it'll also be published on the JJDPC website, in advance of the meeting. So if there are members of the public that wanted to join for part of that. Commissioner Huber-Levy, you look like you have a question.
I have a question. I just had a comment to share, and I think I've already shared it with you, Chair Luis, is that there's a California Corrections and Probation organization that is having their annual conference in September. And a part of that conference involves a training that's offered to JJDPC and JJC commissioners. And I just wanted to raise that, and we can discuss it more after this meeting, but apparently some of our commissioners have attended in the past. I've asked for more information about it, and it seems like a lot of people are asking for more information about it, but I thought if we do have kind of experience resident within our commissioners right now, maybe we can just share that amongst all of the commissioners to determine whether this is something that we should try to get a budget for. It is being held in Newport Beach, and other JJDPC commissions around the state have said that they either get a budget for it or they're asking for a budget to send a number of commissioners to attend. So I guess number one, we should determine whether it's something that we are interested in doing, would benefit some of our commissioners for going. The BSCC training in the morning pertains to inspections, I believe, but I don't have any more detail than that. And there would also be an opportunity in the afternoon to liaise with other commissions to talk about some common issues. They would be able to provide meeting space for that. So something to think about, and maybe share information with the chair if there's some experience. I think Melissa said she had attended her first year on the commission with Michelle Gustafson when Michelle was with the commission, and she found it useful.
It seems like an educational opportunity, but more importantly, we had said at the beginning of the year that one thing that we wanted to try to do more of was to coordinate with other JJDPCs around the state, and this might be an opportunity to do that. I've been asking the county for some budget related to our offsite. Maybe there's some budget to be had for this event as well. Let's touch base on that.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. We have 1 minute left. Any other commissioners have any quick announcements or anything like that?
Yeah, just wanted to say really quickly that there will be a statewide JJDPC call on August 3rd with regard to AB 403 and STRTPs. I think I'll be attending, and Karen is not able to make it. So if you're interested in attending, let me know and I'll forward you the relevant information.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. I will adjourn the meeting at 7. Oh, it just turned 7:15. So right on time, 7:15. Thank you, everyone, for attending, and good to see you. Bye-bye.
Have a good night, everyone. Take care.